Hello, everybody. Welcome into another edition of Mile High Hockey. Joined by my guy, Mike Evans, as always. Mike, the Avalanche are a stunning 0-3. They have given up 20 goals in 3 games. That's a hard number to wrap your mind around. I understand it's 3 empty netters, but it's still an even 20 goals, 0-3. Your biggest takeaway of what we saw over the weekend and then last night against the Islanders?
Well, they're a mess right now, and instead of figuring a way out of this, it seems like they haven't bottomed out yet, because Jared Bednar said after the Islanders lost that at least in the first 2 games, he could see a lot of things he still liked despite the final results. He said, in this case, I didn't see anything. And he said something that is code for a hockey team that is not something you want to hear. He said, we have guys cheating the game right now, and that speaks to a certain level of selfishness instead of doing what's best for the team. And I know everybody out there wants to blame all this on Alexandar Georgiev, and he wasn't good again in the Islanders game. He gave up those 2 soft goals at the beginning, but come on, this is a team that has enough of a culture, enough of a standard, enough leadership that they should be able to fight through some of this stuff. And I see a team right now that's in a funk. I see a team that is feeling sorry for themselves. I see a team that seems to be distracted by things other than going out and winning hockey games, and you can't pin it all on Alexandar Georgiev.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I was in the room on Saturday night, and Bednar, you're right, took a very kind of calm tone and said, hey, Georgie's still our guy. We've done a lot of things right. And then last night, Jared Bednar did not have that same type of tone. He said, I would have bet money that we won this game tonight. Now, there's no sort of betting scandal there, obviously. It's just a metaphor. But what he's saying is, hey, he really liked his practice on Sunday. He liked his morning skate on Monday, and the guys just came out flat. I mean, there's no other way to sugarcoat it.
I can't help but wonder that are there just a lot of issues right now with this hockey team that are taking up the thoughts of these players that just are getting in the way, whether it's, hey, is Gabe going to come back or is he not? What's the deal with Val? Do we even want Val back? Are we kind of being told that we have to welcome Val back? We've got Mikko Rantenen and his contract situation. Is Mikko going to be dealt? We've got, the goaltending issue. We've had some injuries. I just sense a team that is really distracted right now, and it has a very low level of confidence, and also is starting to have some kind of independent contracting type behavior come into the way they're playing.
Yeah, and I like the fact that Cale Makar last night took responsibility for 3 or 4 of the goals, and he said, I made some childish mistakes. That was what the word he used. Like, Cale saying, I'm too old for this. I've been in the league too long to give up goals like that. I mean, the top guys didn't play well last night either, but a word you guys brought up on 104.3 The Fan this morning was crisis. Yeah. Are the Avalanche in a crisis mode right now, Mike?
Well, I think it's fair to say that, or at least question it, because, look, if you lose 3 games and you go on a Seattle, Calgary, Vancouver run, and you lose 3 games in February, nobody bats an eye, right? It's just a long season, the grind, things happen. But the beginning of the season, it is magnified, and it should be magnified, because for a team that has a Stanley Cup or bust type expectation and lost the way that they did in the playoffs last year, this should be a hungry hockey team to start the season. And they look anything but a hungry hockey team. And so, yeah, that is a reason, because there's no excuse, even with the guys who aren't here, even with some of the goaltending issue. Hey, they have been awful on defense.
Yeah.
The mistakes that they're making in their own zone, the poor transition defense, they've been awful, and that speaks to something deeper than just, well, we're going to blame it on the goaltender.
No, I don't disagree, and obviously no Jonathan Drouin last night, no Devon Toews on top of Arturi, Val, Gabe. I mean, there's certainly missing pieces, but that just can't be an excuse, right? You got to win a few hockey games at some point, or you're going to dig yourself too deep of a hole. It was interesting last night. Patrick Waugh returns in the building. He's there with the New York Islanders. Jared Bednar had some fun comments before the game and said, I owe Patrick Waugh a hug and a steak dinner, because if Waugh didn't quit in a huff, Jared Bednar never gets his chance. Those were fun, but you also plugged into Patrick Waugh's comments made at Morning Skate, where he basically said, hey, I've learned some things. I didn't respect how big of a deal it was to be a coach, and I probably shouldn't have quit in a huff like that. What did you take away from Waugh being back in the Mile High City?
It was a very reflective Patrick Waugh who admitted that, I learned a lot from my 3 years with the Avs, that I learned to respect the coaching position maybe more than I did. Remember, he came in and had unbelievable success right from the start.
And he was breaking down the glass.
Absolutely.
And,
Everybody
coaching with fire.
Everybody loved what Patrick Waugh brought. And I wonder if that success, on top of the unbelievable success he had as a player, just made him think, I got this coaching thing figured out just like I had the goaltending thing figured out. And as a result, as he admitted, I didn't maybe work as hard at the game as I should have. And that perhaps showed up over those next 2 years, to the point where now he gets this second opportunity with the Islanders. He feels like he's better prepared for it. So I really enjoyed that reflection. I enjoyed that humility from Patrick Waugh. The other thing that I found interesting was, I heard a guy who said that if I wasn't here, Nathan McKinnon's not here. And that Avalanche fans, you should be thanking me for standing on the table and banging the table for Nathan McKinnon. Remember, Joe Sakic and Patrick Waugh came in basically together like a month before the draft that yielded Nathan McKinnon. And at the time, I remember I was on the air at the time. There was a lot of debate about what the Avalanche should do with that pick. Seth Jones was a name that was being talked up a lot. Jonathan Drouin ended up going third in that draft. So you put it all together and have him come out and say, without me, Nathan McKinnon's not here. Okay, maybe Joe wanted somebody else.
Well, yeah, and you reset that timeline for us. I mean, they were both hired basically May of 2013. The draft's a month later. Mike, there was no one in charge at that point. There was no one who had been here for 10 years to say, no, we're doing it my way. So I believe, Patrick, that it was a brain trust decision to pick Nathan McKinnon. But if you listen to Patrick, maybe Joe did want someone else, and he's sort of taken a victory lap of Avs fans. You got that cup in 2022 because I banged the table for Nathan McKinnon.
I don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you,
Patrick. All right, 6-2 loss last night. Obviously, they've given up 8 goals, 6 goals, 6 goals. Not a sustainable way to win. As we look ahead, do you start Georgiev on Wednesday night against the Bruins? I mean, honestly, Mike, when I was watching this game last night, the biggest story was, is Jared going to pull him again? Is he going to get pulled for a third time in 3 games? And I think Bednar really wanted him to finish that game because he didn't want the headlines of Georgiev gets benched for a third time in 3 games. But on Wednesday night, do you have to shuffle to Jussi Saarinen against the Bruins at Ball Arena?
Here's the thing. I think it's pretty obvious, listening to Jared Bednar and watching the way they're handling, that they just feel he's mentally fragile.
Yes.
And whereas some athletes you could look at and say, hey, a mental break might be a good thing. Go upstairs, watch the game from high up in the press box, see the game a different way. I think sometimes with pitchers in baseball, you invent an injury just so they can shut it down for a little bit, go down to the minors, work on some things when really it's about getting their head right. But I think what they're telling us with their handling and some of the public pronouncements of what they're saying about Georgiev, they just feel like if they did that, they might lose him even more mentally.
Yeah.
So their way of looking at it is, we got to let him play through it, because this isn't a guy we can bench. This isn't a guy that we can feel comfortable settling into a backup role, backup goaltender that we can call upon. I don't think they feel like mentally he'd be up for that. So they're really only left with one thing, and that is keep sending him out there and let him try to play through it.
Well, and I love Avs fans that are like, they got to trade for a goalie. Guys, we're playing real life hockey, not fantasy hockey.
Right.
With what cap space?
Right.
I mean, you would either have to get off Mikko Rantanen's deal, get off Val Nichushkin's deal, or force Gabe Landeskog into some sort of retirement. And those are uncomfortable conversations. There's no way to create cap space to bring in a goalie without doing something that would rock the fan base.
Well, and that's also recognizing that you're already hamstrung when it comes to working on a deal for Mikko Rantanen.
Right.
So now you're going to be further hamstringing any chance of getting a deal done with Mikko by trading for goaltender salary.
It's going to be fascinating to watch, because I didn't expect 3 games into the season it to feel this bleak. I understand they have 79 to go, Mike, but this was not the start the Avalanche or the fans expected, and we'll be monitoring it closely. Appreciate everyone tuning in, and we'll see you on Thursday after that Bruins game for another edition of Mile High Hockey.